So, my name is Markus Ejenäs. I come from ProSales Research, part of Mercury International. We're a full-service provider in sales excellence with sales research, sales consulting, and sales training in over 50 countries over the world, including Finland and Sweden. Happy to be back at Sales Morning. I think the first time, Ollie, correct me if I'm wrong, it was in 2015 or 16. And glad to see that you've adapted and gone into a digital mode these days. So I'm going to start with a story. In 1942, Albert Einstein was teaching at the Oxford University, and one day he gave an exam to his senior class of physics students. And when he was walking on the campus with his assistant, the assistant suddenly stopped him and said, "Dr. Einstein, this exam that you just gave to the senior class of physics students, wasn't that exactly the same exam you gave to exactly the same class 1 year ago?" Yeah, Dr. Einstein replied. "It's exactly the same." "But Dr. Einstein, how could you do that?" The assistant said. "Well," Dr. Einstein said, "the answers have changed. What was true for 1942 is also true for today. We live in a world where the questions might be the same, but the answers have changed. In other words, what got you here will no longer get you there. And if you want to have results, you have to start doing things you've never done before." One way of knowing what to do is to try to look at trends and observe and monitor trends around you. And trends arise when new innovations and ideas meet a human need in a new way. In other words, trends are indicators of people's new habits, behaviors, and expectations, meaning that they give us new answers on the same questions. For many years, we at ProSales Research have studied and analyzed hundreds of business trends over time. Trends that are shaping the future of sales and marketing. And some of those trends have been given a powerful boost during the pandemic, while others have stagnated. But what are these trends giving us new answers on what to do the coming years? Today, I would like to share with you 5 trends that have accelerated this during the past year and that are shaping B2B sales beyond 2021. It's the rise of the filter economy. It's time to make self-service a B2B sales strategy. It's time to get ready for the age of sales automation. We're expecting a boom of subscription-based business models, and we are going into an era of sales skill transformation. So let me walk you through these, and let me start the first trend with a short story. In the beginning of 2020, many companies was hard hit by the coronavirus outbreak. One of them was the Chinese cosmetics company Lin Qingshan, who lost 90% of their sales in the beginning of the year. However, in very short time, they managed to go from store sales to e-commerce with the help of Alibaba, and in addition to that, they redeployed their 100 beauty advisors from physical stores to become online sales reps, using simple digital tools such as, for example, WeChat, to engage customers virtually and drive online sales instead of working in the stores. So Lin Qingshan not only managed to prevent the crisis, in fact, they increased their sales by 200% compared to the previous year. So how was this made possible? Well, this is an example of a company that quickly changed their sales model to fit into something we call the rising filter economy. What is the filter economy? Well, it can be described as an economy where the majority of all human-to-human sales interactions take place in different physical spaces using a digital filter in between them. This is nothing new, but the question is, what will it look like in the new normal after the crisis? Well, let me try to answer this question by showing you some interesting data on this. This graph shows the proportion of inside and outside B2B sales reps in Europe. Between 2013 and 2019, the proportion of inside sales reps grew from 35 to 42%, while the number of outside sales reps decreased from 65 to 57%. According to surveys, this trend is expected to continue the coming years. And these salespeople representing inside sales, they already work in the filter economy as they do business from a distance. But what happens then if we also add the time outside sales reps spend on filter conversations, working at a distance? Well, then it gets really interesting. Look at how extensive the filter economy is. Look at the chart now. From 2013 to 2019, the filter economy grew from 50 to 70% to reach the highest level ever at 94% this year. Our prediction is that the new normal will mean that we end up at around 80%, meaning that 4 out of 5 all human-to-human sales interactions in B2B will be based on filter conversations, even in complex sales. Will it be permanent? Yes, we believe it will be. Why will it be permanent? Well, first of all, because most B2B buyers have already changed their expectations on you as a provider or seller. According to McKinsey, 70 to 80% of all B2B buyers now say they prefer filter conversations before in-person meetings, citing, for example, the ease of scheduling and the increased productivity as some of the main reasons. But it's not only that buyers has got used to the new way of interacting. The same study shows that 3 out of 4 B2B decision makers now believe the filter sales models is as effective or more effective than the traditional. And the interesting thing here is that it took only 5 months for the majority of the decision makers to change their perceptions on this. Is this good or bad? I don't know, but if we want to stay relevant beyond 2021, we have to adapt our way of selling because customers' new expectations are giving us new answers on a traditional question on how to interact. Another trend we expect for the future is self-service. It's time to make self-service a B2B sales strategy. In the consumer world, this trend has been going on for a long time. We've committed ourselves to do more and more ourselves, everything from doing research on products to comparing, watching reviews, ordering and installing the products we buy, with maybe IKEA as the main example. But this consumer behavior has gradually invaded B2B and is now also strongly influencing our sales strategies beyond 2021. Let me start by showing you some statistics here. This graph shows that in 3 years, from 2016 to 2019, the number of B2B buyers who say they prefer self-service has increased with almost 80%, from 35 to 62%. This is a major shift. Today, the customers' expectations are probably even higher, as almost 3 out of 4 decision makers now believe self-service is more important to customers than traditional sales interactions. This is an increase of 48% compared to before the pandemic. And this is not only about e-commerce platforms. During the pandemic, consumption of do-it-yourself content has accelerated dramatically. Look at these mind-blowing statistics. Consumption of thought leadership content has gone up with 34%. Reading executive summaries is up by 267%. Blogs, do-it-yourself videos on YouTube, podcasts, handbooks, online reviews, e-commerce, they're all on the rise. We do more and more on our own without consulting with the sales rep. When we see numbers like this, we have to ask ourselves what this means to us. Do we make it easy for the buyer to access information on their own through the buying journey? If we don't, now might be the time to do something about that. Related to this is also that we have to get ready for the age of sales automation. Sales automation refers to the fact that automation of sales just received a powerful boost, increasing the demand for contact-free interactions. Just have a look at this map. It shows the explosion of sales automation tools. Today we have more than 700 sales tech vendors that can help us to get ready for the age of sales automation. And many companies are preparing for this new age. During the pandemic, as many as 67% of all companies have accelerated automation and their use of AI. There are so many opportunities in this trend. So let me give you a few examples to give you some inspiration. Given that the filter economy is here to stay, what if we, for example, could record and analyze all filter conversations via, for example, Zoom or Teams in real time, revealing why the deals are won or lost? This is actually what Chorus does. It's like a virtual coach that uses artificial intelligence to break down a 1-hour call into a 5-minute highlight where you get actionable feedback on the salesperson, and its manager can give them answers to questions like, does the salesperson talk too much or too fast? Does the salesperson ask engaging questions? Does the salesperson interrupt the customer? This can be really helpful in times where we even more need to understand how to engage customers and give support to our sales reps who work at a distance. Another tool that can be useful in the filter economy, when you, for example, want to invite your contacts on LinkedIn to a webinar or a conference, is the tool DuckSoup. DuckSoup automates messages to my selected contacts on LinkedIn, a task that sometimes is boring and time-consuming if you do it manually. Maybe some of you watching today have received invitations to Sales Morning using this tool. I don't know. But it's amazing anyhow. And what if we could automate not only the sending of messages, but also the writing of the texts we send to customers? This is actually what the tool Phrasee does. It uses machine learning to generate and optimize copywriting in emails, so people open, click, and convert more often. It saves a lot of time, but most important, it produces actually marketing copy that is far better than human copywriting and constantly improving. And then what if we could automate the very conversations with potential clients that actually respond to our texts? Well, finally, this is what the tool Conversica does. It's like a customized virtual sales assistant that automatically contacts, engages, and follows up with leads via email conversations until the lead converts into an opportunity and then hand it over to a physical sales rep. The tool, of course, frees up time for the sales rep from prospecting to focus on actual sales processes. All right, that was just a few examples of tools that can help us automate and get ready for the age of sales automation. Now, let's look at what we can do to keep our existing customers and create stronger retention. Because we are also predicting a boom of subscription-based business models. The pandemic has clearly shown how vulnerable many companies are when the market suddenly declines. One of the reasons for this is that they haven't hooked on the major trend and based their business model on the idea of selling a product or service as a recurring subscription. Let me start by showing you some interesting facts here. This graph finds that companies using a subscription-based business model outperformed their product-based peers by wide margins. From 2012 to 2020, subscription-based companies have increased their sales by 403%, compared to 130% for the average company on Standard & Poor's 500 list. More interesting is that while the companies on the Standard & Poor's 500 list saw sales decrease by minus 10% in the second quarter 2020, maybe the worst pandemic quarter, the subscription companies actually expanded their sales at a rate of 12%. And it's not only software as a service and tech companies that have embraced this model. Industry after industry, also traditional industries, are switching from ownership to subscription-based products and services. Let me give you some examples. Let's say you sell lighting. Why wouldn't you do as Philips and offer light as a subscription? This is what they did when they sold light as a service to Schiphol Airport. It might sound strange, but why should one buy light bulbs and install lighting fixtures as a customer when all you want is the function of light? Today, Schiphol only buys a subscription and Philips does the rest. Purchasing, installation, maintenance. Or let's say you sell something as traditional as construction equipment. Here, companies like Caterpillar are investing heavily to put hardware sensors on all of their machines in order to sell information services around their hardware as a subscription. The company intends to double its subscription-based revenue by 2026. And subscription-based business model also hits consumer goods, of course. If you sell shoes, why wouldn't you do as the Swiss company On does? In September this year, they actually launched this running shoe, Cyclone. It's fully recyclable, made of castor beans. it will solely be available via a monthly subscription. You subscribe to the shoe or a pair of shoes. Besides that they get a smooth revenue stream, this subscription model also guarantees control over the product life cycle, and that On can take care of the worn out shoes, which meets their sustainability goals. So if you don't have a subscription model yet, at least for part of your offering, it might be time to consider a change. Okay, given the massive changes that I've pointed to in the four first trends, it's not perhaps a surprise that we need to say hello to an era of sales skill transformation. As a result of all these disruptive changes, sales and marketing are facing major challenges when it comes to upgrading their employees in skills needed now and beyond 2021. Unfortunately, until now, not much has happened, as if we look at the statistics, there is no clear trend historically. Spending per employee on training has actually stagnated since 2010 and is now at an average about $1,200 per employee and year. But we believe it's about to change, that in the coming years we will see a trend break where more companies will invest heavily in upskilling and reskilling their workforce. Why do we believe this? Well, there are many signs of this shift. First of all, last year, many major organizations responded to new challenges by launching ambitious upskilling and reskilling efforts to prepare for the future. In March, the multinational investment bank JP Morgan Chase unveiled a 5-year, $350 million commitment to curbing their global skills gap and prepare today's workers for higher technical skills. 4 months later, the e-commerce giant Amazon pledged to spend $700 million to retrain 100,000 employees in order to adapt to an economy increasingly disrupted by automation and new technology. And shortly after that, in October last year, PricewaterhouseCoopers announced it is investing a whopping $3 billion to upskill all of its 257,000 workers. This decision was made since it had become apparent to them that there is a huge mismatch between the skills people have today and those needed for the digital world. And this is probably just the beginning of an era of sales skill transformation, especially if you take into account that nearly 9 in 10 executives say their organizations face or expect skills gaps within the next 5 years. And the pandemic, of course, has made the need to address this skills gap even more urgent. What does it mean for all of us in B2B sales? Well, the last decades, we have seen a long-term trend where traditional sales skills are being disrupted and replaced by new skills adapted to new buying behaviors. In practice, this means that we, for a long time, have moved in 2 different directions, where sales either become more transactional and automated, which places higher demands on technical skills, or on the other hand, we have moved into a direction where sales become more complex and value-based, meaning that we need consultative advisors who possess higher cognitive skills such as problem solving, analytical thinking, and conceptual understanding. And for many organizations, this means that they are facing a great skill gap that has to be addressed. Okay, so to summarize what I've said today, we have 5 trends that are shaping B2B sales beyond 2021. Today, I've shared 5 of these trends. All of them, I would say, have been given a tremendous boost during the pandemic. But to be clear here, it's not because of the pandemic, but because of customers' rapidly changing habits, expectations, and behaviors that you need to reconsider how you sell and how you market. With that, I would like to thank you very much for listening. If you want to dig deeper into the trends I spoke about and 45 additional super trends, buy our book, Super Trends. It's available on Amazon. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And not to forget, subscribe to our newsletter, Trend Watch, in case you want to catch up with the new trends. Thank you very much.